Hello, Commissioner Rathbun. Can we check your audio, please?
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Got it. Thank you. Commissioner Naka, can we check your audio and video? Video.
How's that? Testing.
Yep, got it.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thanks.
Commissioner Chun, can we check your audio and video, please? Video check.
Me?
Yep, can hear you. Thank you. Okay, can we test your audio, Commissioner Ono? Commissioner Ono, can we do an audio check?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Chair, can we do an audio check?
Yes, hello.
Oh, wait, thank you. Okay, we can begin now, Chair.
Hey, mahalo. I hereby call this meeting of the reapportionment order. It's 2 p.m. on January 20th, 2022. This meeting is being conducted by video conference and telephone. I would like to remind the commissioners to keep their cameras on for the duration of the meeting. Will the secretary please take the roll?
Chairman Guishi,
Present.
Commissioner Chip Chase, excuse, Commissioner Chun,
Here.
Commissioner Kennedy, excused, Commissioner Akota,
Here.
Commissioner Ishimura,
Present.
Commissioner Naka,
Present.
Commissioner Ono,
Here.
Commissioner Rathbun, Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Commissioners, pursuant to Act 220, Session Laws of Hawaii 2021, you're required to disclose if anyone is present with you for this meeting. Commissioners, is anyone present with you for this meeting?
No.
No.
Thank
No.
you.
No.
Thank you. I'm going to disclose that I have my Assistant Vice President of Government and External Relations, Matthew Sasaki, present in the room with me. Thank you. Additionally, pursuant to Act 220, we will be meeting remotely using interactive conference technology. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the Office of Elections website at elections.hawaii.gov shortly after the conclusion of the meeting. As a reminder to the public, your microphone will be muted until you are called upon. We will now move on to public testimony. A list of testifiers who have submitted their name before the meeting has been added to the chat. As technical issues may arise, we will give each testifier a few moments to try and resolve any connection issues. However, if the issues cannot be resolved, we will have to move on to the next testifier. If you would like to testify, please click raise hand under reactions on Zoom. If you are joining us by phone, please press *9. When recognized, please unmute your microphone before speaking. You may also turn on your video at this time. For the record, please state your first and last name and the items you will be testifying on. For those testifiers joining us by phone, we will not have your name and will be identifying you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. To ensure that we will have sufficient time to hear all testimony, each testifier will have 3 minutes to testify. Once your time has expired, you will be asked to conclude your remarks. During public testimony, the commissioners will also be muted, but they may unmute themselves to ask questions. Mr. Secretary, will you please announce the first testifier?
Testifier is Eileen O'Hara, followed by Mary Smart.
Good afternoon, commissioners, and thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me to speak. I want to bring to your attention, Chair, before I get started, I testified last month, and in my testimony at the end, you asked the other commissioners if they had any questions for me. One of the commissioners directed a comment at me that was a little bit demeaning, and it wasn't formed as a question, so I didn't have the opportunity to respond. I hope that type of behavior doesn't happen again because it discourages public input. And while I very much appreciate the work you're doing and the extra work done by the commission resulting from acquiring corrected population numbers late in the game, I do not support the redistricting plan that the commission has developed, which I will refer to as the HRC plan. I am here in support of the Boyer plans, whether it be version 1 or version 2. And the reason being, these plans, either version, do not significantly violate constitutional criteria. In effect, they provide a better alignment with the constitutional criteria than the HRC plan. It follows all the criteria set forth in Article 4, Section 6 of the Hawaii State Constitution. And the Boyer plans, whether it be version 1 or 2, have additional qualities that make them preferable to the HRC plan. For instance, House districts are equally aligned so that you have 2 House seats aligned with 1 Senate seat. We now have 4 Senate seats. It has a smaller overall population deviation by a full percentage point over the HRC plan. It keeps similar socioeconomic characteristics in the same district, another constitutional criteria. And while we still have a large District 5, geographically large, very little population, the Boyer versions provide a more compact district than the HRC plan does. So for all of those reasons, I would urge the commission to support the Boyer plans, either version 1 or 2, as the most appropriate state house districting plans moving forward. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you.
Next testifier is Mary Smart, followed by Kimiona Kane.
Okay, thank you, commissioners, for letting me speak. I am a member of the Mililani Neighborhood Board, but I am speaking for myself, but many other members of the board have weighed in on several of these issues that I'm going to talk about. I'm still disappointed with the maps. They still break up the community needlessly. And one of the things Sandy Ma says from Kamikaze Hawaii is it's important to keep community of interest together. And one of the things that helps you identify community of interest are neighborhood board designations, also school board designations, also the census community of interest. And you have violated all of these community of interest in the most current maps for Mililani Mauka and Mililani Town and YPO Acres. Breaking up Mililani Mauka makes no sense. I would love to have for the record an explanation for those of us who know where incumbents live. You intentionally, it appears, cut the incumbent for Mililani Mauka, who the residents love and have voted in, cut that residence out and put it in 37, and for some reason have come down into Mililani Town and made sure you got a Wiki Street. It just looks like no one's paying attention to the Constitution of Hawaii, Article 4, and many sections. That one is particularly Section 2, but you also violate keeping us compact and keeping community of interest together. You're putting Mililani Town with, distant communities you don't need to put us with. And you're breaking up Waikele. You're doing to Waikele what you had done to Mililani Town in the past, but I don't think they're probably aware of that. I know that both Tristan Chica and Marilyn Lee have spoken up about keeping YPO Acres with one of the Mililani Town because they're in the Mililani Town neighborhood board. They go to our high schools. So I really hope that you'll take the Constitution to heart. You look at the fact that Koa Ridge, you put that in District 37. They're supposed to have 3,500 residences. They already have 300 people that moved in. In the next 2 years, 37 is going to be massive. And having Mililani Mauka, Mililani Town, YPO Gentry, and Waikele, you dilute the Mililani Town voice. So I'm just pleading with you as every other neighborhood board has done. I applaud you for others. You.
Next testifier is Kimiona Kane, followed by Ralph Boye.
Thank you. Aloha nui kako o Kimiona Keia. I'm Kimiona Kane, Waimanalo. I'm here on behalf of the Waimanalo Neighborhood Board, as well as in my individual capacity. I want to mahalo the chair and the staff and the commission for the opportunity to share our mana'o and our thoughts on the technical group's updated and final revisions to the maps for our district. I am in support of the House District 51 adjustments that, again, reused Makapu'u Point as the boundary line. That is one of the things that our neighborhood board took a stance on to really try and reiterate. So mahalo nui for hearing the concerns of our community in that regard. We are still in the advocacy of trying to adjust the Senate District 25 around back to Makapu'u Point as well. Strongly understanding and recognizing that the Senate District 25 has been like that for 20 years, as highlighted by our commissioners on the technical group. So this is still an opportunity, I think, for us to correct some of those wrongdoings of the past, and utilizing our time now to make those differences again, I think can only help to benefit us. Currently, that Senate District straddles 3 communities and 3 very different communities. And so I think for any senator who has that kuleana, it is definitely something a little bit more difficult than just trying to focus on 2 communities versus 3. That just seems to make more sense. Now that Oahu has lost a House seat, I think it's much more doable to have the Senate seats filled with the appropriate amount of 2 House districts. To me, that just kind of makes more sense. But a political strategist. So on that regard, we still want to advocate as a neighborhood board that Senate District 25 be readjusted to meet Makapu'u Point and moved northward into Ko'olaupoko. Mahalo. On a personal level, I again want to just echo the sentiments of the appreciation for House District 51, the same concern with Senate District 25, as well as encourage this commission to really try and utilize Bill Hicks' plans as a base, not necessarily having to adopt it in its entirety if it doesn't serve the functions, but everyone I think has a good understanding now of what contiguous needs to look like and some of the other aspects of the Constitution. And so I think Bill Hicks has done an incredible job putting that together and making that realistic for all of us to learn from. There still are some communities, as Mililani has shared, that have concerns, and I hope that the commission will hear their plea to make them much more succinct with what the community is needing. And so I hope that the commission takes that to heart. But aside from that, Chair, mahalo for the time, mahalo for your folks' work and effort in trying to bring our communities hopefully closer together with the best representation possible. And I can be present for any questions if there are any, Chair. Mahalo nui a kākou.
Next up is Ralph Boye, followed by Sandy Ma.
Sorry, had a little bit of trouble unmuting. Thank you very much, commissioners, for allowing me to testify today. I submitted written testimony, and I respectfully request that each commissioner read that testimony. It goes into significant detail about our concerns about the Hawaii House proposed plan from the HRC and our community plans. We do have two versions now, version 1 and version 2. I'll speak to that change in a moment. However, the main point I want to make is that our plan meets all 7 of the constitutional criteria, where the Hawaii, the technical committee's plan does not. Remember, Article 4, Section 6 of the state constitution says, in effecting such redistricting, the commission shall, and I emphasize shall, be guided by the following criteria. The word guided seems to be give permission, but when you look at the criteria, I'm going to refer primarily to criteria number 6. It says, where practicable, representative districts shall be wholly included within the senatorial district. And as I pointed out in my written testimony, practicable means capable of being done. And we have shown that, in fact, it is capable of being done. It can be done. Therefore, it shall be done. If you don't do it, you're in violation of the state constitution. It is really clear that it should be done. We have 4 Senate districts and 8 House districts. Clearly, each of those Senate districts should be divided into 2 House districts. There's no reason not to do that. There has been some comment about the House district being big. Ours is a little bit smaller. It's not a lot smaller. It's a little bit smaller than the commission's district. But let's remember, each of the Senate districts is bigger. Each of the Senate districts contains 2 House districts. So when you're talking about the size of a district, looking at the Senate districts, none of the House districts even come close to that. As other testifiers have stated, our plan has a better, a lesser overall deviation. I think that's important. One of the other areas that we're extremely upset about and concerned about is the criteria that basically says you need to put, you should not divide up socio-economically diverse districts. And the commission's plan, House District 3, does exactly that by putting many of the Maukapuna subdivisions into a Hilo-dominated district. That's been done forever. It's time to change that. The census data shows that for the Keala Mountain View area, there's 41,000 residents there. A House district only requires 24,999. Clearly that area deserves to have its own House district. Thank you very much.
Next testifier, Sandy Ma, followed by Bill Hicks.
Thank you. Sandy Ma with Common Cause Hawaii. Good afternoon, Chair and Reapportionment Commission members. Common Cause Hawaii is a nonpartisan, nonprofit grassroots organization dedicated to upholding the core values of American democracy, which includes ensuring a fair and transparent reapportionment and redistricting process. You should have our written testimony before you, and I just want to highlight a few points. In our written testimony, which is also stated in our July 13th written testimony to you, we highlighted that the Native Hawaiian Community of Interest, Papakolea, is split between House Districts 26 and 27 in the proposed modified legislative reapportionment plans prepared by the Technical Committee. We ask that Papakolea be kept whole, as this is a significant community of interest of Native Hawaiians. 2, we ask that the Commission listen to the testimonies of interest when considering and finalizing the proposed modified legislative reapportionment plans prepared by the Technical Committee. You have heard before you today, orally and in written testimonies prepared for you, Mililani, Pearl City, and the Big Island areas have significant concerns with the House district maps. And you've also heard that East Oahu and Windward Oahu have significant concerns with Senate maps. We ask that you please listen to their concerns and the concerns of communities of interest in finalizing these maps. Third, Common Cause alerts the Commission to Article 4, Section 5 of the Hawaii State Constitution. This provision states that any basic island unit should have 2 senators. Kauai has 1 under this plan. Kauai, a basic island unit, has only been allocated 1 senator and is required to have a minimum of 2 under Article 4, Section 5. We ask that you consult with your Deputy AG assigned to this commission as to how to rectify this problem with your maps in time to provide finalized maps for the Office of Elections and in satisfaction of Article 4, Section 5 of the Hawaii State Constitution. And finally, Common Cause Hawaii asks that you include our request for a legislative remedy to end prison gerrymandering. This likely cannot be done for this reapportionment cycle, but for reapportionment in the next 10 years. I'm available for any questions. Thank you for considering our testimony, and we ask once again for you to listen to communities of interest. Thank you.
Next testifier is Bill Hicks, followed by Representative Peluso.
Chair, I'm Chairman of the Neighborhood Board that has received an alternative Oahu Senate plan that is on the Technical Committee's House plan and is fully in accordance with all constitutional criteria. Article 4, Section 6 of the Constitution states, practical representative wholly included within senatorial districts. The aligned Senate plan fully complies. Every Senate district contains exactly 2 of the House districts drawn by the Technical Committee. Every House district is fully contained within 1 Senate district. On the other hand, the Technical Committee's Senate plan does not comply. Only 9 Oahu House districts are fully contained within 1 Senate district, while 25 Oahu House districts are not. On December 22nd, Chair Mugiashi said, if you have a district that has synergy between the representative getting elected by the same constituency as the Senate, you have a much better chance of affecting meaningful change for your community. And so I'm trying to understand why people would object to aligning their Senate map and their House map. I would think that would be a wonderful thing to do. Well, the aligned Senate plan precisely does this. Every senator would only have to coordinate with 2 representatives, and every representative would only have to coordinate with 1 senator to properly represent their district, with a shared understanding of the community's needs for schools, roads, and other infrastructure. On the other hand, the Technical Committee's Senate plan has multiple Senate districts that span across 6 House districts and multiple House districts that span across 4 Senate districts. This makes it much harder to effectively coordinate action and therefore dilutes representation. The public placed its sacred trust in commissioners, both individually and collectively. Your responsibility to the public to attempt to follow the Constitution, and if constitutional criteria are practicable, then to follow them. It says Ralph Boyer said. Chair, I believe it is in the public interest, as well as the interest of each individual commissioner, to fully understand the choice before them to either support the technical committee's Senate plan, which finds it is not practicable to adhere to the Constitution in 25 of 34 House districts on Oahu, or to support the alternative Senate plan, which is fully aligned with the technical committee's House plan and fully adheres to the Constitution. Chair, for both the public and each individual commissioner to be fully informed prior to potentially making a decision that runs counter to the Constitution, I request that the Reapportionment Commission's professional staff present a detailed side-by-side comparison of these two Senate plans. Mahalo.
Chair, before we continue, I'd like to acknowledge that Commissioner Chip Chase has joined the meeting. Next testifier is Representative Peruso, followed by Angela Maderos.
Aloha, commissioners. I just wanted to first thank you for your work on this issue. I recognize it's taken a great deal of conversation and consensus building. And I wanted to, in particular, thank you for the extraction of the more accurate number of active duty military, because I think that it enables a true up for our community representation and gives us a better sense of the folks who claim residency here, pay taxes, and participate in our community affairs. And so I wanted to, I am in particular, my district is particularly impacted by what's happening with the changes in Central Oahu because of the extraction. And I just wanted to let you folks know that I am grateful for those changes. I think that under the new lines, I will be working with 9 elementary schools, 4 middle schools, 3 high schools, and 4 neighborhood boards. And while that might seem, a little overwhelming, I think that the communities that are encompassed within the new District 46 have historical and familial ties. And I don't think that enough attention is really being paid to the interconnectivity of these communities. And I think that there has been too much attention paid to identifying communities in an exclusive sense, so excluding others. So I do want to say that I'm grateful for the chance to reconnect some of these communities. And I also wanted to just briefly respond to Mr. Hicks' analysis about the need to contain House districts within Senate districts. And I would say that as a practitioner in the legislature, it is not necessarily the most beneficial for our constituents to only work with one senator. So I think that in practical terms, change is not only effected in one particular structure. We can work across different boundaries. And I think that, the neighbor islands have done that. Neighbor island legislators have done that very effectively, organizing us as blocks. So we also do that in Central Oahu. So thank you for this opportunity to testify, and thank you so much for your work.
Next up is Angela Maderos, followed by Lisa Bishop. Okay, I still see you're on mute.
Aloha. Thank you for allowing me to come back and testify again today. Chair and members of the Reapportionment Commission, I would like to urge you again to please reinstate our Senate district back to the Makapu'u border. It's been 2 decades now that it has been changed. And I believe that there were not as many voices as today, or as there have been recently from our community that were involved back then 2 decades ago. I would really appreciate that you hear our voices, as was stated in another meeting that I was on earlier of the Board of Regents, where the community also asked them to hear the community's voices. And I ask that you hear our voices and please reinstate our border for our Senate district. And I believe it's Senate District 25 for Waimanalo back to Makapu'u. I did hear Bill Hicks' testimony. I'm sorry I got on a little late, but I did hear his testimony today and how he stated that it would be a lot easier when each representative only has to deal with one senator only has to deal with 2 representatives. I believe that is true and correct. I believe that it would help to resolve a lot of issues, and it would help to keep more people involved in government dealings, as is sometimes it's harder to get people involved when they don't know who to turn to. So mahalo for reinstating our District 51 line back to Makapu'u. I thank you very much for all of your hard work. And thank you again for hearing our voices, and ask that you please reconsider changing our Senate district also back to Makapu'u. Aloha, ahuiho, and malama.
Okay, next up is Lisa Bishop, followed by Ingrid Peterson.
Good afternoon. Aloha Reapportionment Commission Chair Mugi Ishii and all members. I am Lisa Bishop, a resident of Oahu. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify today. Also mahalo in advance to the Oahu Advisor Council for, I hope, forwarding our concerns and testimony from the 14 and 18 January 2022 Oahu Advisory Council meetings. I am very grateful that the technical committee chose to reinstate Makapu Point as a natural geographic boundary between House District 51 and now the new House District 18. But I would also like to ask you to reconsider dividing Papakolea into 2 House districts and to rethink how you have divided Mililani. Those 2 areas are still drawing a lot of concern and requests for changes from residents in those areas. So I hope that those can be accommodated in the new House district plans. On the Senate side, I continue to be disappointed that the new Oahu Senate plan does not recognize Makapu Point as a natural geographic boundary and does not align entire House districts into Senate districts as directed by the Constitution. With 17 Oahu Senate districts and 34 Oahu House districts, it is both required and practicable to achieve this mandate. You have heard this from other testifiers before me. Bill Hicks has forwarded Senate maps for Oahu that do exactly that. Yet the technical committee members continue to cling to their draft that does not meet this requirement of the state constitutional. Explanations for this so far have included the process is complicated. Despite other proposed maps, this is the best way to do it. My senator says it's okay to have several House districts in his or her Senate district. There are different interpretations of the state constitution. It's a judgment call. We don't have to apply all of the requirements of the state constitution. It's too difficult for residents to understand. Bill Hicks has done it. His maps abide by all of the requirements of the state constitution. Why is the technical committee's Oahu Senate plan that does not meet Hawaii's constitutional requirements better than the Hicks plan? I'm just asking. We deserve a straight answer from the technical committee on this subject. I therefore respectfully urge you to respect our apolitical testimony, requesting these 2 simple things. Respect Makapu Point as a natural boundary for Oahu Senate districts, as has been done for House districts, and abide by the Hawaii State Constitution and Hawaii revised statutes, and assign only 2 House districts to each Senate district. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify today.
Next up is Ingrid Peterson, followed by Maki Morinoe.
Aloha. I missed the last meeting, so at first I would like to say a great mahalo for having restored Makapu Point as the natural geographic boundary for the House districts, for House District 51. I really appreciate that. And now, like others here in Kailua and Waimanalo, I ask that you use that natural boundary also for the Senate district. That's the way it was when I was growing up, when I was a young adult. It only changed 20 years ago. So I strongly support Bill Hicks' Align Plan, which would combine the 2 House districts of 50 and 51 into 1 Senate District 25. And that would, Senate 25 would then be just Kailua and Waimanalo, no Portlock or anything. We are the windward neighbors. We share Kailua High School, and that combines the Native Hawaiian constituency of both Waimanalo and Kailua. So this would be best for the people, for the communities. So I ask that you please restore Makapu'u as a natural geographic boundary for the Senate as you have for the House. Thank you so much.
Next up is Maki Morinoe, followed by Roberta Mayer.
Aloha. I wanted to thank everybody so much for all this hard work and attention to detail. I am not going to go too deeply as those before me, Eileen O'Hara, Mary Smart, Ralph Boya, and Sandy Ma has made fantastic points. I want to support today looking at all the maps that were provided. I really still feel that the Boya community map is the best representation for the Big Island. And also to remind everybody that this map was a collaborative experience going from block by block by residents all around the island. So it did have residential input in there as much as possible. So I feel that it's a straightforward and inclusive map. Thank you so much. Aloha.
Next up is Roberta Mayer, followed by Shannon Madsen.
Aloha, Commissioners. My name is Roberta Mayer, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Hawaii Kai Neighborhood Board and the Hawaii Kai community. I would like to thank the technical group and the commissioners for the adjustments that have been made to the Hawaii district, the House district maps to maintain Makapu'u Point as a boundary between House districts 51 and 18. I hope that the commission will consider the concerns of the residents of Papakolea, Pearl City, and Mililani in making some slight adjustments. Also, with the reduction of 1 Oahu House district following the extraction, it now makes perfect logical sense to modify the Senate districts by placing 2 House districts into 1 Senate district. If the House district numbers are equal, then putting 2 House districts into 1 Senate districts would maintain that equality and also provide alignment. I do support Bill Hicks's plan and hope that the commission will consider his House and Senate district maps. Thank you so much for all of your time and effort. Aloha.
Next up is Shannon Madsen, followed by Kapo'ohu Olahaina.
Aloha, commissioners and staff. Mahalo once again for taking my testimony. I have 4 points that I'm going to try to hit as quickly as possible. First is I'm asking that you please incorporate into the record that our Hawaii Island Advisory Council did hold a meeting on November 29th, where almost all of the attendees were in favor of the community map House 7 plan, seven house district plan. I know that that plan is now, of course, outdated and no longer relevant. However, I just wanted to make sure that that does make it into the record. This past week, January 18th, they stated that their minutes still weren't finalized from that meeting. So I'm concerned that it might not make it in before you have your chance to finish your deliberations here. And I also wanted to state that at the January 18th meeting, almost every single testifier, I believe there were about 25 people from all over our Big Island, were in favor of the community plan. That's the new 8 house plan. I don't know if they will be entering a report today into your record. I'm hopeful that they will, but if not, I just wanted to state for the record that there was a meeting here and I was in attendance and everyone was overwhelmingly in support of the Boye community plan. Number 2 is when looking over the Boye community map, I noticed a census block where connectivity is cut off. It was due to an error in the Hawaii Island Senate map lines that Ralph's group was following. He addressed it in his updated community map, but I would encourage the tech committee address it as well in their Senate map. It is listed as a zero population or mostly a zero population area. The only road in appears to be on North Glenwood Road, which is in Senate District 2, while the block in question, including there's numerous zero blocks. It's the Ola'a Hawaiian Homelands area, and there's an irregular census block with a 9 population number that stretches over into S3. So for the only way for that to be accessible and have connectivity, we need to move that over. So I'm hoping that the tech committee can make that small adjustment and possibly re-examine my earlier testimony. I wanted to reiterate my earlier testimony of those Senate maps, including all of Volcano into Senate 2, rather than linking it with Kona. Even if it means shifting everything around, it's worth it to fix. The Volcano community really resonates with Senate 2 and Upper Puna much more than Ka'u or all the way to Kona. It's just a really unreasonable distribution of that community. So I'm hoping that can still be addressed. Also, I would encourage you to submit irregular census block data, a list for correction, for future correction. I think it's in 5 years that the federal government examines those irregular census blocks after this whole process is complete, similar to what our Hawaii Island County Redistricting Commission did. And sorry, my last point, so quick. Last but not least, I just wanted to reiterate, I strongly support the original H8 community plan and the updated H8V2 community plan over the tech committee plan. And I urge you all to please once again adopt this map moving forward. Mahalo nui for your time.
Next up is Kapohu o Lahaina, followed by Ariel Murphy.
Aloha, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Mahalo for all your hard work and so appreciate what you've done for our Waimanalo district in changing that to be corrected back to the Makapu'u 51st district line. Also, again, requesting that we go ahead after, a long time to correct the 25th Senate District to be, included at that Makapu'u point and also, into the Ko'olau District, which really serves our interests better. Again, mahalo for listening to the concerns and including the voices of the people. I would also urge you to take into consideration the testimonies given for the Big Island, Mokuokeawe, Pearl City, Mililani, and Papakolea. Very important that we take into consideration the suggestions that they're making, because this does affect us. It sure gives me a really good feeling to, retrust the process. thank you for doing your job. Very much appreciated. Mahalo, and God bless you all as we go forward and make all the changes to the best interests of the people. Aloha.
Next up is Ariel Murphy. Chair, there are no further testifiers.
Okay, thank you, mahalo. There are no further testifiers. We will move on to agenda item 4, which is consideration of public testimony regarding modified final legislative and congressional reapportionment plan recommended by the Technical Committee Permitted Interaction Group. So as a reminder, our meetings this week are to hear and consider. Is there kind of
Just feedback on the line, I believe.
Okay, thanks. As a reminder, our meetings this week are to hear and consider public testimony on the modified proposed final legislative and congressional reapportionment plans recommended by the Technical Committee Permitted Interaction Group. We will not be holding a vote today, and action will be considered at subsequent meetings. I just wanted to share that at our last meeting, there were some questions regarding the constitutional guidelines governing legislative redistricting, and that obviously was in the testimony of some people today as well. So I wanted to take this time to reiterate what those guidelines are and summarize what has been discussed by the commission thus far and what I heard at our last meeting regarding Article 4, Section 6 of the state constitution. So basically,
Chair, excuse me. I think there's a testifier who was having some technical trouble, Ariel Murphy, and I think she got herself on, but she's on mute again. She was the last person who was trying to testify. Sorry.
Ariel, are you on? Do you want to go ahead? And then I can wait until after you're done.
Yes, yes, please, if I may.
Okay.
Aloha, I'm Ariel Murphy. I'm a Puna resident of the Big Island. And I would like to commend you guys, the commission and the technical staff and the advisory council for all your hard work, not only in generating the various maps, but in getting public input and for allowing us to participate. I am grateful for this chance because this whole effort will significantly affect the area, which is Puna, where I'm at, where I live, where I've been living for more than 20 years now. I believe that many of Puna's problems can be better solved with the help of what we are doing now, this redistricting effort. I'd like to take advantage of this time to throw my full support behind the community map, the Boye community map. Not only does it follow the requirements of our constitution for redistricting, it is also the best for Puna because it keeps Puna subdivisions intact and within Puna. For more than 10 years now, some of our communities here in Puna have been included in the Hilo district. That is not Tono and violates our constitution. The Boye Community Plan puts that kind of merging rural with urban areas to an end. The Boye Plan is Puna's hope to have our own house districts. I respectfully ask that the members of this commission, technical staff, and advisory council adopt the Boye Community Plan. Thank you very much. Mahalo and blessings to you all.
Okay, thank you. We're going to revert back now to agenda item 4. As I was saying at our last meeting, and you also heard some comments about that today, there were some questions regarding the constitutional guidelines that govern legislative redistricting. And so I wanted to take a little bit of time to reiterate what those guidelines are and summarize what I interpreted, what I heard at our last meeting that was discussed by the commission regarding Article 4, Section 6 of the state constitution. So there are 8 guidelines, and what the Constitution says is, in effecting such redistricting, the commission shall be guided by the following criteria. Number 1, no district shall extend beyond the boundaries of any basic island unit. Number 2, no district shall be so drawn as to unduly favor a person or political faction. Number 3, except in the case of districts encompassing more than one island, districts shall be contiguous. Number 4, insofar as practicable, districts shall be compact. Number 5, where possible, district lines shall follow permanent and easily recognized features such as streets, streams, and clear geographical features, and when practicable, shall coincide with census tract boundaries. Number 6, where practicable, representative districts shall be wholly contained within senatorial districts. Number 7, no more than 4 members shall be elected from any district. And number 8, where practicable, submergence of an area in a larger district wherein substantially different socioeconomic interests predominate shall be avoided. So commissioners at our last meeting, including those from the technical committee, spoke to the constitutional guidelines. To what I heard, there were 2 important points made, which I would like to reiterate here. I tried to summarize it then, but I want to reiterate it again here today. The first is that there has been consideration by the technical committee of all the constitutional guidelines. The commissioners verbalized at that meeting that they did not pick and choose among their criteria. They considered them all. Consideration is required and due consideration is being given. The second is that after due consideration, the members of the technical committee believed that the modified proposed plans represent what they, the technical committee, deemed to be the best complies with the constitutional guidelines. The point is that the need to balance the 8 requirements of the Constitution is why many of the guidelines are modified by the phrases where possible and where practicable. That is what I heard the commissioners speak to at our last meeting. Now, following the public's input with testimony over the next few days, the technical committee is planning to meet again to consider whether there will be any changes to the proposed maps. And final proposed maps are planned to be presented at the January 26th meeting. These guidelines will continue to be followed throughout that process as well. So now what I would like to do is invite the commissioners, any commissioner, and the members of the technical committee especially, to confirm if I've accurately summarized what was represented at the last meeting and what's being done in our process to date. Yes, Commissioner Ono.
Chair Mugishi, yes, that accurately summarizes where we're at, and additionally, today, as well as the 2 subsequent commission meetings where we'll be receiving public input, all of that written as well as oral testimony will be duly considered as we relook at the maps before our final vote is taken.
Thank you, Commissioner Ono. Any other commissioners want to make a comment?
I would agree with Commissioner Ono and just add, like I've said before, right? I respect everybody's opinion, but there's many different opinions about what the constitutional criteria are and what they mean. And, that's something that we just have to, sometimes we got to respect other people's opinions and agree to disagree. But there is no way that we are going to satisfy everyone's opinion on the 8 criteria, to their full extent, because there's different things that are going to be taken into account. And, at the end of the day, I know everybody's doing their best, and the input has been definitely duly noted and, reflected in the past, the ability to make changes based on that. And, we'll take that into account going forward also.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Naka. I think I always use the expression It's a Latin expression, res ipsa loquitur, but it means the facts speak for themselves. And I think, the fact that the technical committee took a lot of public input in our earlier public hearings and made substantial changes to the maps based on that testimony indicates that you're listening to public testimony. And I appreciate that very, very much. So thank you. Any other commissioners with any comments?
This is Commissioner Nakota. I'm going to agree with Commissioner Ono and Onaka. We really did take public testimony to heart. We did not just go draw lines to draw lines. We really did and followed the Constitution as we perceive it to be, along with our legal counsel. And it's like Commissioner Onaka said, we're not going to make everybody happy. And it's just the way it is. And unfortunately, that's probably life. But we will take a look at our lines again, and hopefully we can make some adjustments if needed. If not, we'll go look at it again.
Thank you, Commissioner Nakota. Anyone else? Okay, mahalo. We'll now move on to the next agenda item 5, reports by the Apportionment Advisory Councils. So we have invited each advisory council, Hawaii, Maui, Kauai, and Oahu, to provide feedback on matters affecting redistricting for each basic island unit. We have planned to allow each advisory council to present at our commission meetings. Would any advisory council like to present?
Yes, Chair, Steve Pava, Hawaii Island.
Yes, please, go ahead, Steve.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. I just wanted to report that we did have a meeting on Tuesday night, the 18th of January, and that the majority of the testimony and testifiers were in favor of the Boye plan, or the Hawaii Island Community Plan. The commission had a lot of discussion about it. We did not vote to endorse any specific plan, but the commission did note that the plan does well meet the criteria. It does well in keeping communities intact. It does a good job of keeping 2 House districts in each Senate district. The Advisory Commission noted all of that and thought that the plan all in all was a good plan and that it did meet the criteria. I realize that the criteria set forth in the Constitution are guidelines, but where practicable, what that plan presents to me is that it is practicable to meet most of the criteria given the reality of that plan. So the commission noted the effort of the community that put the time and energy to create the plan. And again, as I said, we didn't endorse any specific plan, but we did acknowledge that the plan meets the majority of the criteria and does a good job in redistricting the 8 House districts for the Big Island. Thank you.
Mahalo, Stephen. Any commissioners have any questions for Stephen from the Hawaii Advisory Council? Okay, mahalo. Any other advisory councils present to testify? I know I saw the Oahu Advisory Council minutes in our material packet, and they provided a synopsis of some of the testimony presented there, and also made no formal recommendation stating that they defer to the technical committee. Any other comments or from anything? If not, I need to ask if 2 or more commissioners attended a meeting of their advisory councils. If so, HRS 92-2.5E requires you to confirm your attendance for the record and report on what matters were presented and discussed. Since the advisory councils have already reported or submitted minutes on what occurred, if you want, you may choose to simply confirm, clarify, or add what was stated for the at the council meeting, or just state that you were present.
I was present at the Oahu meeting.
And I was present at the Oahu meeting also.
I was briefly present at the Oahu meeting.
Sure,
Me
I
too.
was
I didn't make the
present at
whole
the
thing, but I was
Oahu
there
meeting.
for part of it.
I was observing the Oahu council meeting, and I did observe the video of the Big Island Advisory Council meeting.
Thank you. Commissioner Chan, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I also attended the Oahu meeting on the 18th.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Rathbone, I think you unmuted, but I didn't hear.
Yes, sir. Chair, I attended the Oahu Advisory Group meeting.
Mahalo. Secretary, did you get all of that or did you need? Okay, thank you. Thank you, commissioners. Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Agenda item 6, discussion and potential action on the January 11th, 2022 letter from the Hawaii State Senate Standing Committee on Government Operations regarding informational briefing on reapportionment. So on this was also in your in the meeting packet, but on January 10th, staff and I attended an informational briefing by the Senate Committee on Government Operations regarding reapportionment. On January 11th, 2022, the commission received a letter from the Senate Committee on Government Operations requesting that the commission take into consideration the matters discussed at the briefing and provide a response by January 20th, 2022. A copy of that letter, as I mentioned, is posted in the meeting packet. Some of the issues around the request may involve legal advice. And so if that's true, once we hear the presentation pursuant to HRS 92-5A4, the commission anticipates that it may need to hold an executive executive session to consult with its attorneys on questions and issues pertaining to the commission's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities regarding this agenda item. But other issues may not require legal advice, and those we can discuss here in open session prior to going into executive session. So to start with now, the Reapportionment Project Office staff has been doing research around these issues, and they have a report to present to us. So with that, I will turn it over to David and your staff to present your findings.
Thank you, Chair. On January 11th, 2022, Chair Mugi Ishii received a memorandum from Senator Sharon Moriwaki, Chair of the Senate Committee on Government Operations. This followed the Committee on Government Operations hearing on January 10th, 2022, at which the Chair Mugi Ishii and others associated with the reapportionment process were invited to testify. Senator Morikawa's memorandum sought, in part, Chair Mugi Ishii's statement regarding the decisions on criteria and methodology based on the Hawaii State Constitution and Act 14, 2021. Chair Mugi Ishii responded with his statement on January 12, 2022. Additionally, the same memorandum from Senator Moriwaki sought for the commission to take into consideration matters discussed at the briefing. These topics include the following. 1, accounting for permanent residents of Hawaii that are outside of Hawaii due to being military member or dependent, or as a student at a higher education institution. 2, a consideration of the process that the state of Kansas followed for adjusting its census data to address the military and student populations. As it relates to congressional reapportionment, there is no dispute that we are required to use the data from the U.S. Census Bureau. HRS 25-2, i.e. apportionment, apportion those members among single member districts so that the average number of persons in the total population counted in the last preceding United States Census per member in each district shall be as nearly equal as practicable. This data is not adjusted by the Census Bureau to account for permanent residents of one state living in another state. As such, when we use the data from the U.S. Census Bureau for congressional reapportionment, it in no way is adjusted to account for those present outside of the state. To the extent we understand the proposed consideration of military members and their dependents, that are Hawaii residents living outside the state as part of the state legislative reapportionment, it would require the total population to be different than the one used for congressional reapportionment. In other words, the congressional reapportionment total population would be the US Census, while the total population for state legislative reapportionment would be US Census plus whatever data could be obtained with reasonable confidence of permanent residents outside the state. This would be before we extracted non-permanent residents to arrive at the permanent resident population that Article 4, Section 4 requires. Additionally, HRS 25-2 provides in part the following. For purposes of legislative reapportionment, a permanent resident means a person having the person's domiciliary in the state. In determining the total number of permanent residents for the purposes of apportionment among the 4 basic island units, the commission shall only extract non-permanent residents from the total population of the state counted by the US Census Bureau for the respective reapportionment year. These 2 sentences were added by Act 14, SLH 2021, and raise questions as to how they are to be interpreted in relation to Article 4, Section 4. For example, the first sentence refers to a permanent resident, to someone being who was domiciliary is the state. Well, this appears to be straightforward. It opens up the question as to whether permanent residents or temporarily outside of the state at the time of the US Census were meant to be included by the statute as part of the permanent resident population for state legislative reapportionment purposes. Additionally, if this was what was meant, then it raises the question as to whether such a statutory clarification is permitted or consistent with the text and structure of Article 4 of the state constitution. As for the second sentence, it appears to reflect that the base or total population that we initially operate from is what is established by the US Census Bureau, and that we then proceed to extract non-permanent residents from that total population to arrive at the permanent resident population. Ultimately, we take no position on this and defer to the commission on its interpretation of the state constitution and applicable statutes. However, assuming that the commission directs staff to adjust and increase the total population for the state legislative reapportionment purposes before extracting non-permanent residents, we would require guidance as to how this would be accomplished. Specifically, a lot would depend on the type and quality of the data provided by the military. For example, if the military data merely refers to a set amount of military and dependents having a state of legal residence of Hawaii, then we will not be able to assign them to a particular census block or perhaps even the basic island unit without making certain assumptions through a disaggregation model across the state. Likewise, the memorandum refers to permanent residents studying outside of Hawaii, i.e. numbered paragraph 1B. The memorandum appears to suggest offsetting the extraction of the non-permanent residents by the number of permanent residents outside of the state. This would functionally require us, as described above, to increase the total population or the starting point for state legislative reapportionment. Similar to the topic of the military, it would depend on the quality of the data and assumptions the commission wishes to make. Additionally, unlike the military, in which it maintains up-to-date records of military personnel and the state of residency they claim, it is unclear for the extraction purposes if we could rely on data relating to those studying outside of the state. For example, it is not clear if we could assume students studying on the mainland may not choose to change their permanent residence to a different state, or what the reasonable factors would be for such an analysis. Ultimately, we take no position on this and defer to the commission on its interpretation of the state constitution and applicable statutes. We understand that the commission plans to go into executive session following this report to discuss this issue. Assuming that the commission directs staff to adjust and increase the total population for state legislative reapportionment purposes before extracting non-permanent residents, we would require guidance as to how this is to be accomplished. Next is the Cedar, Kansas non-permanent resident extraction. The memorandum at the numbered paragraph 2 asks the commission to take into consideration the process followed by the state of Kansas, which prior to the last U.S. Census had a constitutional provision that required non-permanent residents to be extracted. With the above in mind, our office reached out to the state of Kansas and was directed to Election Director Brian Caskey. Mr. Caskey confirmed our understanding that his state had recently removed its requirement to adjust its census numbers to account for non-resident military and students. However, Mr. Caskey was involved in the last 3 reapportionments, so he was able to provide us some background for the process that was followed in the past. As it relates to the military, he confirmed that his state did not actually receive data from the military in the manner that we do, i.e., they did not get a report from DMDC. Instead, he had to reach out to the commander of the 4 or 5 main military installations in the state. After establishing that contact, he had to ask them to distribute a survey to all of the military personnel. The survey asked the individual to fill it out and indicate whether they were a resident or not, and where they wanted to be counted. The return rate was very low, and the state was entirely reliant on the particular base commander's interest in disseminating, collecting, and returning the forms to election officials. Mr. Caskey says that he will look in to see if he has any prior reports or documentation regarding their procedures. However, as the last time they conducted this process was over 10 years ago, it may take a while for him to find anything that might be helpful. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. Commissioners, it's my belief that the issue surrounding the Kansas methodology does not require legal advice. So I would like to start by a discussion on that here in open session, and we can go into executive session for the first thing after that if the commission so desires. I just want to add to David's report that Colonel Angie Robertson, who is the commander of PACOM, was in communication with us on this concept of a survey. And she did mention that typically at PACOM, their survey return rate is about 10%. And she also expressed a difficult challenge to survey military who might have been in Hawaii in 2020. Now, especially since it's 2022 now. So given that additional context to the Kansas issue, would like to invite any discussion on whether or not we'd like to consider any of the methods used by Kansas.
I think if there's a discussion about considering methods or making recommendations, and this may be for a longer discussion later, we don't have to have it now, but I think it's more important that we have a discussion about recommending to the legislature to propose a constitutional amendment to remove that from the Constitution, because it's very clear that no matter what we do, there's no way to make it precise and exact, and it's going to have all kinds of problems and interpretation. And so in my opinion, it's an outdated requirement that doesn't fully represent. We had a representative testify earlier that has 9 elementary schools in her district. That's because there's 20,000 people in her district that we're not counting. And I don't think that's fair to her or the surrounding community that is now grossly underrepresented because of this constitutional requirement. So that would be my input, is that we recommend that this is something that be removed from the Constitution.
Chair.
Commissioner Ono?
I guess specifically with regard to what Kansas did, by their, their results, I don't think we can even begin to consider trying to survey the military, because I think that would be a waste of time if your return is so low, and as confirmed by the PACOM person here.
Thank you. Commissioner Chan?
Say that I think the Kansas example highlights the fundamental disconnect between our constitutional mandate and the data that is maintained by the military. So not only in the Kansas context, but even for our purposes here in Hawaii, we're having to try and connect the dots where they don't actually really exist, because the military is not has not organized their system of accounting for their personnel so as to comport with Hawaii's constitutional mandate of extraction. I think that Kansas's experience sort of highlights that. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other commissioners with a comment?
Yes, Commissioner Rathbun. I echo what Commissioner Nonaka said. We have spent, I don't know how many hours, probably more, trying to decide where to get numbers from than actually drawing lines. It's obvious that it's not a criteria by anybody until it comes time to draw the lines, and it's difficult to look at the data. And we kept getting different data. We voted to use the current data. If we ask for another set, I'm not confident, or I am confident it wouldn't be the same as this set of data. But I think the most important thing is the census is used as a point in time count. And I don't think it really matters where you live or where you're from. I think if you're in a spot, you're counted in that spot. And that's what the census really does. They don't ask you if you're in the military. They don't ask you where your record or your home state is. I agree. We should probably look at getting a constitutional amendment on the ballot to remove that criteria. And the reason that we brought up was because it disenfranchises some people. Well, everything we've done is disenfranchise somebody. I don't think we're ever going to get it exactly perfect to everybody's liking, but having to just stab in the dark with these numbers doesn't make sense to me.
Commissioner Nishimura?
Specifically to the Kansas information, is the chair looking for a motion whether to use that method or not use that method?
Yes, I think that's ultimately where we'd like to get to. And I have a proposed form for the motion if you're interested in hearing it, Commissioner.
Yes.
So I believe that we should respond to paragraph number 2 of the Senate Committee's January 11th, 2022 meeting by declining to use the Kansas methodology. So I'd like to know if the commissioners are interested in making a motion to authorize me as chair to respond to the Senate committee by declining to use the criteria and procedure used by the state of Kansas to adjust census population data to count military and student residents.
Mr. Chair, I'm willing to make that motion.
Thank you.
And I
Is there a
second it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I think we had a motion, Scott, by Commissioner Nishimura, second by Commissioner Ono. Any further discussion? If there's no, oh, sorry, was somebody going to say something?
No, I was just going to add, from a practical standpoint, I've had personal experience with this in the recent past of being a company commander in the Army Reserve, and we survey our soldiers every year. It's called a command climate survey, and they have the ability to anonymously comment on their leadership and their job approval and their personal satisfaction with the state of the company and the morale and things like that. And it is difficult to get a 30% response rate, even, when they're directly responding to their current situation. And I think, a lot of the military, when you're young, 18, 19, 20 years old, you have no idea what the census is and what you'd even be asked about. So it definitely would be very hard to get any type of practicable, usable data out of something like this, in my opinion.
Briefly speak to it too, Chair. I have the same concerns about the data we have and the disconnect between the data we're given and the job that we have to do with it that have been expressed by the commissioners. But I agree that the methodology is not likely to be sufficiently valuable or to be received in a sufficiently expeditious period to be reliably used by us in altering those counts. And so I will be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Chipchase. Any other discussion? Okay, if not, Mr. Secretary, will you please take the vote?
So we have a motion by Commissioner Ishimura, seconded by Commissioner Ono. Commissioner Chipchase.
Aye.
Commissioner Chun.
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy. Excused. Commissioner Kota.
Aye.
Commissioner Ishimura.
Aye.
Commissioner Onaka.
Aye.
Commissioner Ono.
Aye.
Commissioner Rathbun.
Aye.
Chair Mugiishi.
Aye.
Chair, the motion carries.
Thank you. It's now my recommendation to go into executive session to consult with our attorney for the other issue that I think requires legal advice. Is there a motion for the commission to convene in executive session pursuant to HRS section 92-5A4 for agenda item 6 to consult with the commission's attorney on questions and issues pertaining to the commissioner's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities regarding the permanent resident population base to be used for legislative reapportionment and redistricting?
Chair, I so move that we go into executive session.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Ono, second by Commissioner Nakota. Any further discussion? Mr. Secretary, can you take a vote, please?
Commissioner Chipchase.
Aye.
Commissioner Chun. Commissioner Chun.
Aye.
Commissioner Kane is excused. Commissioner Kota.
Aye.
Commissioner Nishimura.
Aye.
Commissioner Onaka.
Aye.
Commissioner Ono.
Aye.
Commissioner Rathbun. Sorry, I think you're on mute. Commissioner Rathbun, you're on mute.
Aye.
Chair Mugiishi.
Aye.
Chair, the motion carries.
Thank you. So we will enter into executive session now, and we will see the public when we come out. don't see our secretary yet. Oh, there he is.
Oh, okay, everybody is back.
Okay. Okay, seeing that the commissioners have all rejoined, we're now reconvening into open session. Thank you for that great discussion. For the public's information, we had a long discussion about whether or not we would want to add back in or reduce the extraction number as outlined in the manner proposed in paragraph 1 of the Senate committee's letter. I'm going to ask if there is a motion to authorize me as a chair to respond to the Senate committee by declining to reduce the extraction number in the manner proposed in paragraph 1 of the Senate committee's January 11th, 2022 letter.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, so motion by Commissioner Ono, second by Commissioner Nishimura. Any further discussion?
I'll just kick it. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'll just kick it off and then please every commissioner just by saying that I personally, as those of you who heard me testify at the actual Senate Operations Committee meeting, question the legality based on Act 14 of adding back students studying abroad or military who live in Hawaii who are stationed abroad. Based on the language in Act 14, I question whether or not we are lawfully allowed to add them back in. So with that, I want to make sure the other commissioners have an opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I'll speak briefly to the motion. I will support the motion. In my view, even if we had the legal authority to use the data to add it back in, based on the presentations by staff, it does not seem to me reasonably reliable in terms of assigning individuals to an island group or to census blocks. And I am concerned that even if we were able to get and process data that we later determined to be reasonably reliable, that we could not incorporate it and redraw the maps within a schedule that allows us to meet the deadlines that we've been given and ensure that the election is not postponed. And for those reasons, I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Chip Chase. Commissioner Ono, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I support the motion as well, because I think the language of Act 14 is very clear, saying that the commission is to only extract non-permanent residents from the total population of the state as counted by the US Census. And my interpretation of what's being asked of us when we look at adding back in Hawaii students who are studying on the mainland or abroad, or military who are Hawaii residents and stationed elsewhere, that we are adding back into the total population of the state. And I just think the language of Act 14 is pretty clear, and we would be, stepping off on a slippery slope if we went down that road. And I don't think that was the intent of the Constitution. Others can speak to some of the other practical concerns that were raised by or asked by the Office of Elections and how you go about doing this if we were to say we needed to do it.
Thank you. Any other commissioners?
Mr. Chair, I'll be supporting the motion as well. Based on the kinds of information and the timing of the information received to date, there is very little confidence that I have that the information that we receive, if indeed we are able to receive it in time, will provide us a better sense of where to go from there in terms of population estimates. And to that extent, I think that the work done by staff and the information that we have is as best as we can attribute it to, and to base our maps on. And to that extent, I support the motion as well.
Thank you. Anything else from any other commissioner? Okay, if not, there is a motion and a second and no further discussion. Mr. Secretary, will you please take the vote?
So the motion by Commissioner Ono, seconded by Commissioner Nishimura, is to authorize the chair to respond to the Senate committee by declining to reduce the instruction number in the manner proposed in paragraph 1 of the Senate committee's January 11, 2022 letter. Commissioner Chipchase.
Aye.
Commissioner Chun.
Aye.
Commissioner Kenny is excused. Commissioner Kota.
Aye.
Commissioner Nishimura.
Aye.
Commissioner Onaka.
Aye.
Commissioner Ono.
Aye.
Commissioner Rathbun.
Aye.
Chair Muguishi.
Aye.
Chair, the motion carries.
Thank you, mahalo. All right, well, everyone, thank you very much for participating in today's meeting. As there is no further business, is there a motion to adjourn until we reconvene again tomorrow?
I so
I'll
move.
make a motion to adjourn. Oh, I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Ono, seconded by Commissioner Nakota. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Secretary, please take a vote.
Commissioner Chipchase.
Aye.
Commissioner Chun.
Aye.
Commissioner Kenny is excused. Commissioner Nakota.
Aye.
Commissioner Nishimura.
Aye.
Commissioner Onaka.
Aye.
Commissioner Ono.
Aye.
Commissioner Rathbun.
Aye.
Chair Muguishi.
Aye. See
Chair, the
everybody
motion carries.
tomorrow. Mahalo. Thank you.